Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's RJ Politics, and I'm finally returning. I had only made one video before this, and I didn't feel like it was a complete video, honestly. And it didn't really represent like how I wanted to be represented in the first video. I just kind of threw my beliefs out there. And so now I'm going to take a step back and show everyone who I am politically, right? Where my starting point is. I put a lot of thought into this. This is why it took so long between my first video and this one. I feel like this is a good baseline to determine, to show everyone what kind of person I am politically. So let's just get straight into it. At taking the test, if it'll load ever before taking the test, please note this isn't a survey. These aren't questions, they're propositions. Why, thank you. Oh my goodness, what's happening? Okay, we're English. I'm speaking English, and I'm reading English, so that's good. Just a few propositions to start with. Concerning the last, how you see the country and the world. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. That's a toughie. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Primarily, yes. I definitely agree with this. I feel like both should be, because still, transnational corporations are important to an extent, but we can't completely I would put humanity before them, but we can't completely abandon transnational corporations. I don't like corporations as much as the next guy. I don't know, maybe you're a bootlicker, I don't know, but I'm not going to say strongly agree because, I will say strongly agree because it says primarily, and I definitely agree with that part. I'd always support my country whether it's right or wrong. Strongly disagree. Look, I love America, but I can point out the flaws of America and try to work to make it a better place. There's nothing wrong with that, I think. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I also strongly disagree with this. If my country does something good, I'm going to be happy about it at the end of the day. Why wouldn't I be? Hold on. 1 second. Okay. I would be happy if my country does something good. Why wouldn't you be happy if your country does something good? Now, if you're from a bad country, well, that's not what it's asking, really. It's asking, should you be proud of your country at all? And I reject that. Being from somewhere is important. Community. It even comes down to that point, and it expands outwardly as a country, and then as to a world, right? So we should be proud of humanity, our country, the world. Humanity, and then the world, and then the country, and then the state, and then the city, and then the block you grew up in, okay? You should be proud of each one of those things for their accomplishments, but also be able to critique them properly. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Excuse me, what? Is this color race? White people? If this is about racial implications, what else would I be talking about? Jesus. That's terrible. Who? Yeah, white people are smarter, black people, they run fast, dude, what? Who said? Okay, I know there's people that actually think like that, but that still baffles me that it's on here. I will strongly disagree, though, for obvious reasons. No, because there are actually people that think like that. Let me break it down for you, okay? We're all humans, created by God's grace, okay? And we all have our DNA is composed of very similar elements, every single one of us, okay? Our DNA are very similar, and what's inside of us is almost all the same. We all bleed. We all have a high number of bones in our body. I forgot, maybe 296. I don't know. We all have internal organs, and it isn't defined by racial at all. There's probabilities where oh, well, this person has higher bone density. This person has more muscle density, just naturally. Producers of that, of testosterone and things like that. So no, it's not a racial thing whatsoever in terms of qualities. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm gonna disagree, because I'm not gonna strongly disagree, because sometimes, in politics you have to make allies of people you don't necessarily always agree with in order to get things done. But I mean, when we're talking about Republicans and Democrats versus fascists and pedophiles, then yes. At that point, I don't think we should be enemies. But if that's what you can classify as an enemy, it basically is nowadays. But yeah, I'm gonna disagree. Military action defies international law is sometimes justified. I strongly disagree. International law is international law for a reason. It's so no one oversteps what the entire world thinks is okay, right? You defying international law says you don't agree with the entire world. If everyone on the world doesn't agree with you, that I think it's a little bit of a you problem there, bud. I'm going to strongly disagree. I mean, sometimes though, I will disagree, because it's difficult, because you don't want to commit, the nonsensical way of thinking of, just because there's a law, it must be a good law, right? But at the same time, if the entire world thinks it's a good law, yeah, I'm going to strongly disagree. And it's military action. It's not just like activism or anything like that. It's straight up bombing people. So yeah, there is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Strongly agree. We have these presidential debates here in America that are an absolute clown show, if you ask me. Especially the last few featuring Donald Trump. He just basically goes up there and makes fun of his opposition and has no form of policy whatsoever. Like, that's like the best example I can think of. And then with the news shows, especially Fox News, I find it like, I don't watch Fox News for entertainment. I mean, for information. I watch it for entertainment, because they have such extremist, closed-minded views. It's funny, but at the same time, it's not, because a lot of people actually think like this, and they're making a lot of people think like this. So I'm going to strongly agree here. People are ultimately divided by class more than by nationality. I strongly agree. Because, now I'm going to agree. Because nationality, no, strongly agree. I will say that, there are differences between the privileges each nationality is born with, right? But it's saying which one is dividing us more, right? And I think the class definitely divides us more. If you are poor, then you are put in basically the same pot as the rest of the poor people. Now, your circumstances may change other than that, but I think the primary de facto factor in how you're treated in the country is based on your wealth. And you can see that with the people in the Epstein files who are dirty rich, yet there's no legal action being taken against them. The survivors are being silenced because they have the money. Money controls people in today's world. It always says, honestly. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. If you think of the cause of each of these things, unemployment is caused when companies are no longer making a profit, so they have to find ways. They both stem from the same thing. It's when companies no longer make profit from their old business, so they switch it up, and they either raise their prices, inflation, or they make people unemployed. I'm going to strongly disagree, though. I feel like if people are more employed, then they're going to have more jobs, right? And then they're going to be able to afford stuff even if it becomes inflated. Now, there's probably a good argument against that, but I'm trying not to spend too much time on each question because otherwise we'll be here for hours. That's kind of how my brain is thinking right now. I could do some more deep thought in a lot of these questions, but we're on page 2, and we've been recording for 10 minutes. So yeah. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. If a corporation is not given any regulations, they're simply going to abuse the system as much as possible, and that will end up harming the environment very much. I'm an environmentalist, probably was one of my strongest policy points, so I strongly agree with that. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is fundamentally a good idea. Wait, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Am I dumb? Can I not read? Hold on. By Karl Marx. He said that? Well, this is gonna involve some bias here in my answer, but I need to understand what it means. This is basically saying two things. Everyone contributes to the extent that they can. Everyone will receive according to the extent they can contribute. Oh gosh, get off my screen, ads. Okay. I'm going to disagree because there are exceptions to this. Disabled people, they cannot contribute to the way that, in most cases, right? There are some others where they're able to contribute without, while still being disabled. But in most cases like that, most disabled people cannot work, right? So this idea would say that those people don't deserve the same privileges as people who are able to work, and I don't think that's necessarily fair because they were born that way. So fundamentally, it's a good idea, a little bit, for most people, but there are always exceptions to the rule, right? You can't just put a blanket statement like that. So I'm going to disagree. Freer the market, the freer the people. Disagree. I will say the free market does allow people to be more free. There's lots of opportunities for people out here. However, the system can be easily manipulated without regulation. Regulation is very important, and that regulation should be derived from the people. So, very people-based. Its sad reflection on our society, something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly agree. Water should be easily accessible to any person. I don't get why the fact that it's being sold and the prices is being sold is absolutely ridiculous. Unless you have, some, amazing kind of special water, you shouldn't even be allowed to sell it. It's insane. Water should be easily attainable for the average person. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I'm going to disagree here because, in a free market like we live in, right? What's the point of having money that you've made from the free market if you can't purchase, land and be able to live off of it? Live on it, I should say. No, because the land has to go somewhere, right? So then that means some people are going to have more land than others. You're saying, this is a tough question. It isn't in my head, but then when I try to explain it, it's tough. This is something that would require more thought from me to fully give a good answer on, but I know what the answer is, and land should be bought and sold. Now, at the extent to which it is, with BlackRock, is disgusting, and the rising housing prices, I get all that. But, things get a little out of hand without regulations, like I just said. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I strongly agree. People who are in the have a bunch of investments, they don't do anything. However, they live very comfortably, right? And then you compare that to the working man who's being worked to the bone. And a hedge fund baby who's never worked a day in his life lives 1,000 times more comfortable than he does. Better housing, better food, just better standard of living all in general, compared to the working man who gives back to the community every single day, versus a hedge fund baby who all he does is look at his investments for 5 minutes a day and calls it a wrap. I'm going to strongly agree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Now, I don't know what protectionism is. See, I'm not afraid to be like, hey, I don't know what this is. Tell me what it is. In trade, the economic policy of restricting imports through tariffs. Okay. Tariffs, so basically tariffs is sometimes necessary in trade. This is a big question in today's America, if you haven't realized. I'm going to disagree. No. Sometimes I'm going to agree. There are times where countries take advantage of people, of other countries, right? And you should be able to retaliate in some way. However, putting a tax on a country we already had free trade with, putting a tariff on them, is absolutely idiotic. Why would the U.S. put a tariff on Canada? It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, that one's pretty easy for me, now that I know what the word is. But thankfully, I'm not, so big, I'm not so, stubborn about it, and I'm egotistical, and I'm able to, say when I don't know a word. It's fine. The social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. What in the world? I'm not even going to have to explain it. If you agree with this, suck a cock. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. Dude, there shouldn't be billionaires. If you think there should be a billionaire, there's something... Dude, I'm not going to say there's something wrong with you. I wanted to say that. But there's been something in your life that made you think that way. One thing or the other. Some kind of experience where hard work pays off or something. Look, the idea of there being a billionaire is insane to me. I don't think people understand how much money $1 billion is. And they're just oh, they worked for it. No. Do your research. Half of the billionaires didn't do anything for their money. It literally spawned in their lap over generational wealth, dude. And, yeah. Descendants of slave owners, basically. Just freaking passing down money generation to generation. It's insane. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Okay, I'm going to strongly agree here, but I want to preface it by saying that the lowest standard of health care should be enough to keep everyone happy and healthy. Now, if you want some advanced stuff, you know what I'm saying, some hair transplant or I would go as far as saying some high level treatments that we just don't have the budget to give everyone. I would say, but in a perfect world, right, we'd want everyone to have the highest standard of healthcare possible that we could provide, right? I'm gonna put it down to agree because I don't strongly agree. I won't, because the lowest level of standard of medical care needs to be raised significantly in this country and worldwide. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Well, That's the public's job, in my opinion. The public's job to call them out and sue the company, right? That's just, I mean, it's false advertisement. You can sue for false advertising, the public can. But the government doing so is infringement, in my opinion. So I'm going to strongly disagree here. I feel like that's too much. That's a government overreach, if you ask me. Now, obviously, businesses are crooked. I'm not saying, oh yeah, businesses, please be crooked and please mislead the public. I'm saying that the public should be informed enough to see through the misleading information. And yeah. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. Absolutely. Just like I talked about, the freer the people, I disagreed with that. The freer the market, the freer people, this is what I'm talking about. A genuine free market means that it's a fair market. If you have monopolies, that makes it unfair. So, pretty easy one there. We're a third of the way through. This is bad. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Early stage abortion is women's health care, in my opinion. I can see the argument that people have, like, oh, it has the potential to be a human. It's not a human yet, though. And if the woman decides that she doesn't want to have the baby, then she should not be forced to have the baby, right? Childbirth is a very painful, laboring thing, right? And while I don't personally agree with, just sleeping around with whoever, that doesn't mean I should force my beliefs onto those people. Now, if we're talking about, it says it should always be illegal. No. It shouldn't always be legal. I think there are circumstances where it should be legal, like in the second and third trimester, I think yes. But in the first trimester, you should be able to have abortions legally nationwide. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. You should never just go into places and be like, in your head at least. I'm not saying, punch your boss in the face, but in your head, you should always question other people's motives, authoritatives' motives, and what they're asking you to do, really, before you do so. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I don't know what this means, and I don't want to think about what it means because I don't have time to think about what it means. I'm not just going to sit here while I think about what it means. It's giving me biblical stuff. I want to know what it means in this literature sense, used to refer to the belief that punishment is the appropriate way to deal with an offense or crime. Who caused the injury? No, because that person is going to be biased. It's like it's one of those ancient philosophers. I don't remember if it was John Locke or one of them, or Rousseau, that said that's how we are in a natural state, and that's the kind of justice we have. And then one of them said we should change. We're better off like that. And some other one guy said, we got to establish some better stuff. But no, I strongly disagree with that. Because they're going to be biased, and that's not fair to treat people differently based on how vengeful the person who was injured was. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly disagree, because there are some museums and theaters need to stay alive. They need to stay alive because they have historical significance. And historical significance is very important. The ability to retain and pass on knowledge from generation to generation is very important. Now, I get nowadays we have the internet, but we still have to see, people need to see the artifacts with their eyes, and the moments throughout history with their eyes. I'm speaking mainly on museums here. But yeah, I mean, the taxpayers are not paying that much to prop up theaters and museums. It's so minute that it's laughable to even mention that. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. That means mandatory, right? I don't want to sound dumb, so that means mandatory, right? Required by law. Classroom attendance. Okay. Everyone should get their college degree. I mean, their high school degree. No, high school degree. Everyone should be required to have a high school. If you want a high school degree, you have to show up for school. Not everyone should be required. No, I didn't mean that. Everyone is not required to have a high school degree. But if you want a high school degree, you should be required to come to school. Simple as that. And I don't know. I don't know what the cutoff is. I think maybe it's not required until like after, like when high school starts. I think it should not be required no longer for like just to go to school. Like you could choose to drop out starting high school, because I feel like the base learning of what you need to know is already there. Obviously you learn important stuff in high school, but you learn how to survive basically and function in society in elementary and middle school, junior high. So I'm going to strongly agree there for the most part. It's just a very vague question if you ask me. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their kind. You're disgusting. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. There's just vast other options and forms of punishments you can provide. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Strongly agree. People keep secrets from everyone, right? Everyone is hiding secrets constantly. So to make your parents some form of exception, it just doesn't make sense for me. Withholding information it's used by everyone to everyone else. So I don't know why the parents would be an exception. Possessing marijuana, I don't agree with. I try to tell my parents a lot of things, but there's some things I'm just not going to tell them, because why would they need to know that, right? Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I strongly agree. Marijuana is not harmful whatsoever. You'd have to take a ludicrous amount of it for, bad things to happen. Primary function of school should to equip the future generation to find jobs. Strongly agree. I agree, but there should also be other things that go into it. Like, the prime function, I feel like it should be a little bit more flexible. School should be, but I'm going to go with that. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Strongly disagree. Look, disabilities don't make you any less of a human, right? So why would you strip a human right from them? Because they're different. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like this isn't like like Stone Age where you have to like weed out the weakness, right? No. Oh no, they can't survive in the wild. Oh my goodness. Like, no, dude. They're humans. This is modern day, dude. Everyone should be treated the exact same. In terms of human rights, like being able to reproduce. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Absolutely not. Listen to Rage Against the Machine and you'll learn what I mean. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. I agree. I just agree. I strongly agree. Yeah, I'm going to strongly agree. Wait a minute. The way they worded this question was kind of weird. Of course I strongly agree, dude. I'm not Charles Darwin where I think white people are superior to everyone. Oh, look at that. They're civilized and they're savages. They eat their own poop. Yep, quite frankly, I'm not doing it. They're eating the cats and dogs. in Illinois. Like, okay. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support and refuse the opportunity. I mean, I agree, but at the same time, the government can just say you're refusing the opportunity when you just can't find a job because the economy is that bad. So there should be... I'm very situational. I'm going to disagree. I wish there was like a neutral button, honestly. When you're in trouble, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I strongly disagree. You should attack those troubling thoughts head on. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I strongly disagree. I feel like you come here at the age of like 20, right? And you can definitely like become a part of our culture. And yeah, this is silly in my opinion. Now, will they miss home? Yeah, because it's home. But like, if you live the majority of your life here, you're gonna be integrated into our country, dude. Come on. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for us all. Yeah, that's a joke, right? That's a joke. Should receive public funding. I'm going to disagree because, like, it's like if the public wants to pay for something, why would you stop them? I mean, yeah, they could be getting misled, but like at the end of the day, that's still their decision to do so. Page 4, finally. Of counterterrorism? What's that? I need, like, specifics. Conditions of law to design to prevent, deter, and respond to terroristic threats. Like, can I have an example? Consists of laws, policies, and actions designed to prevent, deter, respond to terrorist threats, focusing on dismantling networks and securing infrastructure. Sounds pretty good to me. Our civil liberties. Yeah, I will say that, like, after 9/11, there was definitely some profiling going on. And when ICE was created, it was created during the most scared time of our country of terrorism. So I'm gonna agree, and that's what we've seen what ICE is doing today. So I'm gonna strongly agree. But one party stated it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I'm going to agree. No, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree, but what I will say... okay, not our democratic political system. In a true democratic political system where there's multiple parties that have ideas and contribute things, it's great. But a two-party system, what we currently have, is trash. So yeah. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree, because the people at the top can use electronics and, they can manipulate it in such a way that innocent people are hurt. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly agree. Actually, I strongly disagree. For rapists and pedophiles, I'm a fan of castration, personally, of sexual offenders. But no, I seriously think that I don't think anyone should be put to death, right? Because I feel like no, I've changed my mind. There's a lot of internal conflict going on in my head right now, because at first my mind's first reaction was, okay, well, No, give them a chance to live out the rest of their life, even if they're incarcerated the entire time. But if you are, because I'm a man of faith, right? But if you are the sickest of the sick, I don't think you're ever going to repent, right? So yeah, I feel like they should be put to death. Let's not waste any more money on a person who has, just done the most heinous and incredibly sick things. Like, I think it should be like for serial killers, right? Serial rapists, um, terrorists who have murdered thousands of people, or hundreds or dozens, right? These kind of people should be put to death, probably, because we shouldn't be wasting our prison funding on them, because there's no hope of them being rehabilitated, in my opinion. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. How about we just not do all of that? I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, we need to listen. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, like, you have to pay your taxes or you're going to jail, but, like, at the same time, you don't need to be, like, bossing people around and commanding people. Dude, I hate commanding people, but, like, it's required sometimes. Like, at my job, dude, I'm not even gonna get into that. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything at all shouldn't be considered art. Strongly disagree. Because I don't agree with abstract art that doesn't represent anything. Abstract art always represents something. You just don't see it, and that's okay. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree, but I'm going to strongly agree with the next one. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate serial rapists, serial killers, terrorists. Like, it gets to a point. But punishment should not be more important than rehabilitation for, like, a minor, so a few minor offenses, right? They should be rehabilitated, or like childhood trauma that led them to this. Like, it's a case-by-case thing, really. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. All people are just as important as each other. So, yeah. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. No. The mother and the father should both be productive in both areas, if you ask me. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. I'm going to strongly agree, because I'm an environmentalist, but I will say that you can have efforts to curb global warming and still increase economic growth. You can do both, I will say that. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I'm gonna agree, because I'm a peaceful guy, you know what I'm saying? Astrology accurately explains many things. I agree. To an extent, You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I strongly agree. These billionaires should be giving their money away, because they don't need it, if you ask me, but some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly agree. Sometimes, stuff happens. Statistically, bad stuff can happen more to a person than other people. So I agree with that. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. Disagree. Strongly disagree. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. I'm going to agree. And it's like your definition of immoral. No. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree because my definition of immoral is like, if you're immoral, you're doing like something that's hurting someone else. Consensual sex doesn't hurt anyone. You might feel bad afterwards because you didn't really care about the person, and you didn't have a good experience, right? But no one's getting harmed in the process by consensual sex, right? So I don't see it as immoral. I see it as, I personally don't enjoy it. But yeah, finally I look at 6. Wow, okay. Same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. Doing so would, them being excluded would be discrimination. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I'm going to agree, but there's no way to ensure that. Right? I hate porn. Let me just say that. I hate porn. I hate everything it stands for. But if some gooner is going to watch it at 30 years old, he should be allowed to do so, because he's not harming anyone else. Now, those things he sees may lead him to harm other people, but him just watching the video does not harm anyone. He can still make the choice to detach himself from the video and reality, right? So I'm going to agree, but there has to be like all kinds of restrictions on making it to where it has to be an adult watching the video. Otherwise, I hate it for young people. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is the no business of the state. Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. People can feel naturally homosexual. That is an absurd idea. Now, naturally, look, you shouldn't be having sexual thoughts of any kind until your teen years. If you're having that before that, something happened to you before your teen years, honestly. Now, it is natural in your teen years to start having, sexual desires, in my opinion. Even without pornography, I realized at a young age that, hey, I found certain women attractive. And that's just kind of like how our brains are designed to. But a teenager who's developing and starts to get these sexual desires, let's say they are a woman. If they start to see woman, and they look at a woman, and they look at a man, and they are more attracted to the woman, and they start looking at more women that way, and they're more attracted to all these women, and they're not attracted to any of the men, then how can you say they're not naturally attracted? Even before media of like homosexuality being in the media, there's been homosexuality since the beginning of time, right? So that idea is kind of foolish to me. And finally, these days, openness about sex has gone too far. I'm going to agree, because I feel like people are a little bit... Yeah, I'm going to strongly agree, actually. Like, there's a time and place for some things, right? Now, I don't think sexual health and sexual reproduction is talked about enough. I will say that, because those are two important things. But this, kind of the way people talk about it, like, they talk about it a little too openly. Like, you'll be out with, like, your friends or something, and they'll talk about, like, their personal sexual habits, and then you'll just be like, what? Why are you telling me this? That's disgusting. And they won't even ask if you're, like, okay with hearing about it or anything. They'll just completely violate your brain and, like, oh yeah, we did this and that, and, like, go into detail, and it's like, dude, that's disgusting. Now, if you ask me first, and I'm like, okay, sure, that's a different story. But, yeah, I feel like it's so normalized to not even ask anymore about talking about it. To just... not random people, but people you're not that close to, right? Okay, now let's see where I stand, though. I'm very interested to see this. Where's my thing? Dude, I thought for a second this was my thing, and I was about to say, what? But here I am. Economically, I'm mid-left. Socially, I'm a little bit more than mid-left. Mid-libertarian. I am glad to be where I am at, honestly. I've already done this test once before, so I was kind of expecting around that region, the center of green. It's kind of like where I'm always at when I take this test. I've taken it a couple of times during my life. I think the closest I've been to something different was I think, upper right green at one point when I was like 13, maybe. But that's where I stand now. As you can see, I'm a left-leaning libertarian. Authoritarian sucks. And I can see the economic side of both. But socially, I'm pretty pretty stubborn in my beliefs socially. Economics, I'm more flexible with, but as you can see where I'm at, I have a pretty secure standing on the left. But that's going to wrap up the video. I want to thank everyone for watching. And yeah, this is a very long video. I'm not going to do any editing to it. I'm just going to slap it up on YouTube and see what happens. I just want everyone to know where I stand politically, as kind of like a baseline for my future videos. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!